Alright, so hello everyone, and welcome back to another tier list. I mean, it hasn't been like, what, 3 months, 4 months since the last video, but I'm finally back. First semester is over, so I have a bit of free time, I guess. But yeah. Um, as you might have already seen, I already made a small little announcement that on Sunday we will be having the Return of Strategy Sunday with Siri, with the Siri guide. Um, I hope you'll tune in. She's a very, very cool fighter and one of my new mains for sure. Um, but yeah, I mean, we got the Witcher characters, and trust me when I say they kind of skyrocketed in the meta. Like, I have some very bold opinions about them. So I just decided to make this fun little video here and update you all on what actually has changed on the list. Um, It of course won't be as detailed as the last one because that of course also had data from the last Summer of Legends tournament on its back with some new experiences there. I think I'll wait for a similar tier list until like the next big tournament is over, and I can probably also do some better comparisons between the two. Um, but yeah, I guess a normal tier list will also work. So let's just jump right into it. And I mean, if you have ever seen an unmatched tier list, the first couple of you should not surprise you. The worst character in the game is still Spike. Um, I mean, Spike just has the fundamental problem of not having an ability. Um, it's just sad how it is with the Buffy set. Um, you can kite him endlessly once Drusilla is dead, and there's just not much to do with him, sadly. Kind of similar to him as Angel, where his ability can just be abused very easily. If you win, you draw a card. If you lose a combat, you draw a card. Yeah, well, you already lose a combat, so you don't deal damage, and you draw a card, so you get pushed further into your deck with fatigue. Then you only have 3 value defenses max, except if you have, like, in some cases, defensive shift if the opponent actually moves Angel somehow. And yeah. They're just sadly insanely underpowered, and then to round up the trio of Buffy characters in F tier, we have Willow. Um, Willow, of course, well, has a big problem of first of all needing Terra, then basically all of her Dark Willow effects have to do something with blind boosting, so you lose cards by random. Woohoo. Then her defenses are pretty bad except for meditation, and yeah, I mean, what to say? In box, they're fun, and I love this box, but sadly, they're just not viable. Oh, and by the way, of course, this is for competitive 1 versus 1, so not 2v2 or something weird as that. Nah, sorry, 2v2 fans. I know 2v2 is fun. But next up, also probably no one's surprise, Square Girl. Um, yeah, she just has the fundamental problem of being a max move 4 character. She cannot move more than 4 spaces due to her boost values only being 1s and 2s, so basically everyone can kite her the whole game. Then squirrels are just running effect farm machines, like if you're playing against any of the top tier characters, that of course all kind of have some strong effect. They can just farm them on the squirrels, like you play against She-Hulk, cool. You random discard 2 cards every time they attack a squirrel. Woo. You play against, I don't know, Tesla, who just nukes them all with Lightning Storm. Cool. Nothing you can do about it. And then you're also a 13 health character and melee. Yippee. Yeah. She's just not viable at all. I mean, she has her use cases, I guess, on passageway maps into like Wukong or I guess Muldoon, but that's kinda it. Next up, we have one of the actually fan favorites being Oda. Oda, it's sad to say, but the more I try him out in 1v1, the worse he gets. He's just not made for this mode. Obviously, he's made for 2v2s due to his ability. Once his honor guards are dead, he just doesn't have any damage. Um, Also, they die just very, very quickly, only being able to defend with, I think, 9 cards in the whole deck. Um, on top of that, you don't really have a fatigue game, so you can't really make the opponent approach into some nice flanking positions. Now you're always maneuver boosting to get to them and just rapid drawing through your deck. And yeah, it feels just horrible to play against Oda. And then the last one in F tier will be Mr. Jekyll and Hyde. I mean, on paper, technically they could be very, very strong if you have perfect deck order. But, well, I mean, you have 11 cards for each of your heroes, basically, that are separate to them. So, at any time when you run in as Hyde and attack the opponent and dump your Jekyll cards for Forever Hyde, if you even can do that, you won't have any defense because you're Hyde. And then you, of course, have to stay in Jekyll and just maneuver a lot. And yeah, as Jekyll, you cannot attack. Cool. So either you transform to Hyde again, take damage to maneuver and go up to them, because the schemes don't really work as movement, like pure evil or stuff. In competitive play, we just play around that and it doesn't do anything. Um, so either you take damage and move up to them just to get like 1 damage in with a 5 or something like that, just to be smacked after that for probably more because Hyde's defenses aren't great and then they move away again. Yeah, well, you overdraw. So, I mean, it's Jekyll and Hyde. What did you expect? Then going to D tier with Spider-Man. I mean, Spider-Man is kind of like the newbie character. His ability just sounds good on paper, but sadly is just not useful at all in competitive play because we usually always already know what the opponent will probably be attacking with. At least we have some kind of hint. Um, and yeah, so he doesn't really have an ability, and since his deck basically is so bad that it relies on his ability to do something, yeah, he can't really do much. I mean, the 3/6s are good, but everything else is just kind of trash. So yeah, sad to have our favorite wall crawler down here, but well, what should we do? Next up is King Arthur. I mean, we just saw with Yennefer what King Arthur could have been if he was done properly. So now that Yennefer is in play, there's just never a reason to pick Arthur. Like, never. Before he maybe had some niche cases of just, he's fun, but now you just play Yennefer. Because she has basically Arthur's ability plus. Yeah, I mean, you can cancel his ability, so yay. Then you have Excalibur dependency, so if you don't find it, or if you don't find Lady of the Lake after you played it, well, woohoo. Lady of the Lake also just basically got an update with Witcher senses in Geralt's deck, so yeah, kinda, I don't know, like, kinda, Arthur just got reskinned into Geralt and Yennefer, and both are way better. And then we get to Mr. Invisible Man. I mean, this is probably just a point of power creep at this point because Invisible Man, of course, relies on his fatigue game with 10 auto damage and his 2 surprise attacks to actually do stuff. But yeah, now we get characters like Triss who can basically do 12 auto damage with schemes and still have like 3 sevens in her deck and 2 fours with discard or 3 damage. And yeah, I mean, there's not much Invisible Man can do anymore, sadly, except into like low tier matchups. One of the good few ones that he has is She-Hulk, I guess. That's playable. But yeah, I mean, still, he just doesn't do enough damage anymore. And then we get to Cloak and Dagger. Cloak and Dagger, of course, have like the usual problem of the dual hero archetype that we only seen with them. Is that your opponent will just focus one of them, and there's not much you can do about it. Um, Either they basically focus Dagger, which enables you to swap, I guess, so you can actually get some damage distribution going and keep them alive. But even then, Cloak will take some hits. So either they go for Dagger and cut you off an action gain, so you don't really have damage anymore. Or they go for Cloak, in which case you just maneuver boost every turn, because you don't have value game anymore, and you probably won't get your ability with Dagger anyways, since you can only attack once per turn. And then you're also kind of sad. So, yeah, I mean, I guess a bit more health could have helped them, um, or some other tweak to their kit that they can more consistently swap, like Chosen Fate, maybe a small buff or a buff to their healing. Um, yeah, it's just sadly that they just die. And then we get to the prince himself, Hamlet. Well, I guess this is the tier of royalty because we have King Arthur and Hamlet. um, yeah, Hamlet sadly is just pretty much unplayable. Um, his ability is a constant downside to him. Either you basically draw 2 cards on every maneuver, so you take 4 damage and fatigue each time, or you just instantly take 2 damage at the start of your turn, which is actually the more common thing that I've seen experienced some Hamlet players do. That even if they are low on hand count, that they still take the 2 damage just to not drive themselves way deeper into the deck and kind of play a semi-value game, which still doesn't really work. But that's the only use case I've seen for him. Um, but yeah, he's just not really worth picking. His defenses also really suck. Um, so there's not much you can do with him, and his ability can just be abused very easily. And then this one is probably still my personal bias, but I'll put Winter Soldier in D tier. Well, I mean, I've already talked about him in my last big tier list video, but everything that I say there still stays the same. I never see a reason to pick Winter Soldier right now, especially now that Daredevil has actually risen up a bit more in the meta due to the Witcher sets. Um, like Winter Soldier is just way too inconsistent. You can never rely on his deck actually to function in a way. Even if you get some good draw early and it works, you might just run into a wonderful streak of only drawing red cards, and then you take 1 or 2 undefended hits, and you're basically dying again. It's just there's just never a reason for me personally to pick him, because the way I see competitive play, which is what we're doing here, is I'd rather pick an even matchup for my character um, than pick a character that's slightly favored for the matchup if I have perfect deck order, but loses if I don't. I just want that consistency of knowing that I have it just relies on me to win the game basically, and not on my character drawing good. So yeah, Winter Soldier just well, I mean technically I could put him also in F tier because he's same unplayable as these, but I'll have to stay a bit real because technically he can do stuff in comparison to these two. Um, but yeah, then let's go up to C tier and well, complete the Buffy set because we have Buffy herself. I mean, Buffy kind of has her niche in playing against sidekick characters, but at the same time, I mean, one-half sidekick characters. At the same time, like most one-half sidekick characters are at the very, very top of the meta, except for Robin Hood, which she is good in. And yeah, that's kind of it. So she kind of has a niche that doesn't really function, but I guess she's a bit more playable than the others. The choosable sidekick helps a good amount in different matchups, whether you want a bit more value game with Giles or a bit more attacking power with Xander, which is what I usually go for in her matchups because that's like her win condition technically most of the time. But yeah, I mean that helps a bit, especially in like the C or C plus matchups, maybe even B. Those are definitely playable for her, but everything above that you probably won't play her. But I guess she's a solid pick in some formats like Team League in like third or fourth round. And then we get to the completion of Team Spirit. We have Miss Marvel. Uh, I mean, Miss Marvel is a tricky one because technically she can function quite well. She just needs the right map. And since in competitive play, if you have map advantage, which you probably always need with her, the opponent can just ban her best three maps, and yeah, well, then you don't have much option left. It's not like even the new Witcher maps didn't really help her out that much. I guess Naglfar is quite good for her, but even there she can often just be run down. Plus, it's very easy to play around the zones there, which is also like one big counterpart to her is like, yeah, the opponent can just basically play around all your cards the whole time if they're scared of you being able to smack them with the big wind up. Well, they just place themselves somewhere where you can't be outside of their zone. Cool. If they're afraid of the 6 value attack, the Embiggen, then they just place themselves in a try zone, and you can't use that card. So you're always at the mercy of your opponent's positioning, and yeah, that just sucks. But yeah, speaking of being at the mercy of your opponent, well, next up we have Bloody Mary. I guess this is kind of fitting because Mary does have some play into like Yenenga, Bigfoot, Golden Bat, but at the same time there are just way more consistent and better options now into these fighters that there's just still no real reason to play Mary except if you're like a one trick with her. And even then, there are more consistent characters. It's just that still the opponent can basically decide whenever you get your ability, except for the two closers. Um, and that kind of sucks. I mean, sure, you can play around it and mind game them a bit if you're at 4 cards to make them not attack, but at the same time, you can't really profit on that because well, if they double maneuver away, then yeah, they're 4 spaces away. You'll probably have to maneuver boost to get to them and then attack, and then you're at 3, and then they can double attack you to get you lower in hand size, so you still don't get your ability. Or you double maneuver yourself, go up to 6 cards, and then you just cry because you're Mary on larger hand size. Um, so yeah, there's just so much more counterplay to her, and it's not like her niche matchups are actually worth playing anymore. And then we'll get to Mr. Bullseye. Mm, Bullseye is a weird one because I feel like he has gotten some okay new matchups into something like Leshen and Yennefer. I feel like he's playable into those. Um, but at the same time, he also kind of got some really bad matchups with Arin, Siri, Geralt, oh yeah, Geralt, holy Geralt. And Philippa also. So I think he's kind of stayed where he's at, where he's this very niche aggro character that just depends on his scheme draw. That, if played right into the right characters, can put on a lot of pressure and do stuff. But at the same time, just like with Mary, they're just better characters to pick, I would say, at least most of the time. Um, yeah. Next up, we have Dr. Settler. Uh, Settler's positioning also hasn't really changed that much with Witcher. She still has her same flaws of getting fatigued the whole time, um, not being able to get inside tokens at all, basically, once Malcolm is dead. And yeah, I mean, basically all of the Witcher characters just have an insane fatigue game, technically. So yeah, there's not much she can do about it. And yeah, I mean, she has her niche matchups into like T-Rex, Tesla is playable, Achilles is playable, but yeah. Again, as always with these low characters, there are just better options. So you can play her, but I wouldn't recommend it. And then last in C tier we have Shakespeare. Shakespeare's just dropping lower and lower on each list, I feel like, just due to his very fragile nature, with more aggro characters being implemented into the game, with Witcher now, because Restoration seems to be kind of worried about the fatigue runaway game style, um, that they put in more aggro stuff, and yeah, well, Shakespeare suffers a bit against those, because, well, he dies. But at the same time, I mean, he can play a decent value game, so if it's nothing too hard that can clear off his sidekicks, which basically everyone can, then he's actually playable. But at the same time, it's also again very predictable, just like with Barry and Miss Marvel, where the opponent can just play around your ability and yeah, that to a very bad extent to you, to deny you some syllables, and yeah. Now we get into C+. Now is actually the point where I might say, okay, these characters are pickable, technically, into some cases. If you have like a perfect draft lineup, yeah, okay, they're playable. But yeah, it won't happen that often. Let's start with good old Beowulf. I feel like Beowulf also got kind of power crept. He had a small little niche with Grendel, and then playing a bit more of the like, oh yeah, you're afraid of that game, where he's just going quite aggressive, and then has his two rage up, and he's like, what? You're gonna hit me with a big attack? Come at me, bro. Um, but sadly, feel like right now there's just too many characters that actually have ways to play around that where they don't really care. If we look at like Yentris, they have Portal, and then yeah, if you play Grendel into that, you cry. If we look at Siri, she has Lady of Space and Time, where you're also like, ha. And then we have Aridin, who just negates auto damage at all. Woohoo. Philippa basically only has small value attacks. I mean, Geralt's kind of the exception, but he also has a boostable 3, so yeah. There are just too many ways to play around Grendel, and sadly, you only have 12 defenses, so you can't really play around that threat anymore because it's not that threatening anymore. So yeah, you just get run down mostly, and you can't even play fatigue game because in that also like people are just better now. So yeah, I just feel like Beowulf has gotten power crap. He's still like okay, but yeah, not really worth playing. And then we get to Alice. I mean, if you want some unga bunga action, yeah, Alice is good. Alice is still decent into like stuff like Golden Bat, Tesla. She's good into Moon Knight. Is definitely playable. Um, she still has her good matchups into some meta characters. It's just a bit of inconsistency with her size changes and well, people having a lot of discard nowadays, so that you're even more limited. Um, but she's still kind of okay. It's not that she'll fall off immensely, probably. She'll mainly just stay here as this kind of inferior option to Moon Knight, but definitely still playable. And, well, I mean, he had to appear somewhere on the list. My favorite character, Black Panther. Woohoo! Yeah. I mean, Panther is basically gambling, so whether or not he will actually work out depends on two things. First of all, do you get a Shuri scheme? If yes, okay, we're talking. If not, well, we're crying. And then if he gets stuff to steal, then yeah, what does he steal? Do you steal a beast form from Dracula? Or do you steal like, I don't know, a feeding frenzy? That's a that's a big difference. So yeah, I mean, it's just inconsistent as hell. You have very low defenses with Fury, so you can't really keep her alive, so you just mulligan for the scheme and hope for the best. And yeah, it's just even more luck than usual, and you know what my opinion on luck-based characters is. Uh, yeah, let's go into the next one. Good old Robin Hood. Damn. I remember the like first tier list I saw from Zero Skater uh, back in the day where Robin was, I think, like something around S or A tier. Oh boy, oh boy. Poor Robin. I mean, this is probably also just a case of power creep, where his big weakness, his big flaw, having only 3 value defenses and being a 13 health character without healing, um, just caught up to him. There are so many characters that have way ways to deal with one health sidekicks now because Restoration Games admitted that it's not really that big of that that of a fun playstyle to just punch through one health sidekicks the whole time. So basically, everyone has some kind of ping effects now. Um, so yeah, your outlaws die and then you just get smacked hard. Sad thing is you can't really return that hard smacking yourself because Robin just depends on attacking a lot, but not with high values. And yeah, with the addition of even more like 5 cancel characters, highway robberies also don't do much. So yeah, I mean, I guess he still has some of his good matchups into like Wukong, but I just feel like the more very competitive characters we get, the more irrelevant all of these lower characters become. Then this might be a bit of a surprise, but I'll put Bruce Lee next. What to say about Bruce? I mean, Bruce has some decent new matchups. Leshen is a fun and weird one. I've discussed that with George Carlin on Discord a bit. That's one of the weirdest matchups I've played. Um, Technically, Philippa is doable, although she has bidding and turn, which you don't like. But it's also quite fun to play. Siri in early game is kind of fun, but yeah, everything else you don't really like it. So yeah, Bruce just stays as this decent combo character. I just feel like we have another combo character right now that's just better suited for the meta in Raptors. So I feel like Bruce's utility has gone down a bit, but he still has his niche and kind of like the same good matchups as before. Yeah, not much else. Then we have Ghost Rider as the last character in C+. I mean, Ghost Rider is not like that big of a threat anymore, I guess. Um, Witcher characters didn't really suit him well, from my experience. So there has been no rise in comparison to like some other characters that we have on the list. Um, on the other hand, they also don't hurt him too much, so he's kind of been staying here in this somewhat stable position on top of C+. You could argue for him to go up to B. I wouldn't mind that, but I'll keep him here for now. He has still his decent matchups into like G-Bat, Dusa, Bigfoot Yen, which is like a good chunk of like the top tiers. But again, I think I'm repeating myself. They're just more solid options right now. And with that, we're done with C+. And now we actually get into pickable characters that would feel like you have to keep an eye out in any draft. They're still a bit more niche, but if you can get one of them lined up well, oh boy, you're in for a good ride. Now this was a close one, but I'll have Widow in B tier here. I was debating to put her in C+ and keep Ghost Rider in B. Um, just due to Widow being more hurt by Witcher characters. But at the same time, I just feel like Widow's overall potential is still higher. Because if you get like a lineup of Dusa, Yenenga, and maybe something like, I don't know, what else is there even? Strange. Then you can definitely make Widow work. Um, she's still very hard to play, and you have to know which exact mission to recur at each point. So I guess that will always hinder her a bit from the casual player base to actually pick her. But if you devoted some time to her and actually know what you want to do, then she's definitely a decent pick into some of the characters. It's just that a lot of the top tiers right now just really destroy her. Like if we're looking at something like Bigfoot or Siri or Tesla, She-Hulk, you don't have a fun time against those. So it has to be a very specific draft for Widow, but at the same time, if you make her pick valid, we've seen what someone like Phantom does with Widow in some specific final there in some of Legends last year. Or was it? No, it was Winter of Champions. Actually, it was Winter of Champions. Um, so yeah, Widow's pickable, but just slowly falling off the meta due to the more high spec characters. And then we get to Raptors. Raptors were mentioned when I talked about Bruce because I feel like they're kind of very well suited for the meta right now. In terms of their niche, they just kind of really fit this combo character type very well right now. Um, because we have a lot of value-based fighters that don't have a lot of draw right now in the top meta. If we're looking at like something like G-Bat, Yennefer, Siri, Tesla, She-Hulk, Moon Knight, those are all matchups that Raptors do really good in. Like at least even if not favored for them. So I can definitely see them maybe even going up a bit more, but they still have their glaring weaknesses. And definitely a lot of counters still there. So I guess if you manage to make the pick work, then congrats. I still remember getting counterpicked with Raptors in basically every single Summer of Legends game. Like I always managed to get a draft myself where Raptors just destroyed me. Uh, so yeah, Raptors definitely have a special place in my heart. Um, but yeah, I definitely recommend you if you have the option. Go for a Raptors pick. The opponent might not expect it, and then they're just like, oh, damn, right, they exist. And yeah, next up, from one triple hero to another, we have the Wayward Sisters. Mm, Sisters is a weird one because they're still probably next to Genie the most complex character in the whole game. And we've yet to find a player that has really devoted their time to them to master them. I feel like they're kind of in a niche where it's on the edge between, okay, it might be worth playing them a lot to pick them and not being worth to pick them and invest that time because I feel like even if you devote so much time to them, you might not get the best results just due to inconsistency with symbols. Um, but I'm still open for players to prove me wrong on that. I feel like they're still a decent pick. If you know what to do, you have some good odds into something like Dracula, Luke Cage, T-Rex. You're really good against T-Rex. Muldoon is playable. Titania, of course, is playable. Tomoe is a fun one. Um, Red is decent. You can technically even do stuff against someone like Bigfoot, and Tesla. So there are definitely ways to play them. It's just you have to have the experience and the knowledge, I guess. So they're just really hard to play, so I'll keep them in B tier for now. Once we find that Sisters one trick that wrecks everyone, we might see their full potential unveiled. But yeah, let's go to the next character that's really hard, and you might have seen, well, we haven't had a single Witcher character yet, which is because Philippa is next, and as you see, all of them are basically B or higher, which is exactly what I wished for. Philippa is really weird because you can play her in very distinct ways that are extremely different from each other. One is, of course, you just discard a lot of cards into all form and just rush the opponent down. You basically run through a deck of 30 cards while they run through like 10 or 12. And you spam ability and just rush them down. Into some characters that works. Um, on the other hand, you can also definitely play a decent value game with the Dijkstra schemes. Um, Here the Redanian plot, or I don't remember the card name. The two then ignores. Um, so yeah, you definitely have a lot of discard. You have bidding, which is like one of the best defenses in all of Unmatched, and then also three more feints that also end turn. So there's not much you really miss in her. The one thing that's probably her biggest problem, in my opinion, is her defenses overall. Yeah, sure, she has bidding and three feints and then two fours, but that's kind of it. She has two threes with bidding, two fours, and everything else is a two. So if the opponent just keeps smacking you with big values, which often if they support the draw, they can, and they're not that scared of you because even if you're spamming ability, you only have four cards in hand, then probably at the end of your turn, then they come in, smack you twice, or once, depending on where you're at. You're at three cards, then you can attack twice, sure, and then you land at four again. But you can't really dump much into all form because you don't have so many cards in hand, and then the biggest thing you have is two sixes, and that's it. So you sometimes lack damage. Um, but still, it's a very interesting game with her, always deciding when to discard, when to push the aggro. And she just kind of feels like that genie where you have many options in how to play her, and it's just very dynamic, and your win condition will shift basically every turn. So Philippa might still rise for me. I feel like she has potential, but on the other hand, she also has definitely some big weaknesses, just like Genie. So I feel like she's kind of suited good where she's at right now. And well, while we're speaking of Genie, I mean, why not just put him next? I mean, these three is just basically the skill only category where like if you're cracked with them, they might move up one or two tiers, and if you're new with them, they might move down one or two tiers. Yeah, Genie, basically all I've said to Philippa and Sisters also applies to Genie, where he's just extremely hard to play, and all depends on your three wishes usage. Um, all of them are usually viable depending on what matchup you play and how the game actually turns out. So yeah, it just depends on you as the player. He still has some big weaknesses, mainly again his bad defenses. I see a trend here. Um, but yeah, he can definitely still play very cool games, either great value, rush the opponent down with actions, or OTK with wishes. So yeah, Genie will remain decent here, but probably never go any higher. And then last one in B tier we have Annie Christmas. So Annie is kind of like in a weird spot, I feel like right now, where she wants to occupy that, yeah, I smack the big fighter category, but I feel like we've gotten some new characters that fit that category better in some cases. Um, those chunk health Unga Bunga characters like Bigfoot, Achilles, Moon Knight. Um, I feel like we've gotten some new characters that deal with those kind of characters very well and that are just a bit more viable. She definitely still has a lot of great matchups still into like Luke or T-Rex and other stuff. So I wouldn't really say she's dropped off, which is why she's still in a solid B. You can definitely play her if you have the experience with her. She's a solid pick. It's just that I see a bit more potential in other characters to excel in more matchups than her. Plus, other characters somewhat do her game plan a bit better because she's very reliant on their Lanyards usually, or Charlie being alive. One of the two is always needed um, to actually have enough damage, and then yeah, you might fall flat, and of course the opponent still has somewhat control over your ability. So again, a slight problem, but not too much in her case because you have enough ways to influence that. So yeah, she'll stay in a solid B, kind of in the middle of the pack, and that will be it. Uh, so no, this was always a controversial one. T-Rex. T-Rex, I mean, I had her a bit lower, I think, on my last tier list. And I also posted one on Reddit before where I had her somewhere in B, I think, or no, I think I had her even in C plus. Um, but since then, I've played some Witcher matchups into her a bit more, and yeah, she does have some pretty good matchups into them. Like she stomps Arin, she stomps Leshen, she kinda stomps Yennefer. Siri is a weird one, just depends on Unicorn Ally, but yeah. And Philippa also kind of gets stomped, so she does have some good matchups into them. Which is why I put her a bit higher now. It's just that still I don't really believe in Rexy's scariness anymore. I'm just never really afraid of her because basically everything is kind of even with her now due to split advantage. Even if you get map as Rexy, the opponent just starting with 7 cards while you start at 5 is such a huge disadvantage for you as this aggro character that wants to rush them down. Um, then yeah, I just never feel really afraid of Rexy, and basically all of the top tier characters kind of have some play against her, I guess, if you want to tell her that. But yeah, I'll just keep her here in B plus. Definitely good to see her a bit higher now, but it's not that she does a lot, in my opinion. And then we get to the second Witcher characters, and some of you might be surprised by this, but it's Geralt. Geralt is a weird one because, of course, he has his option to choose at the start of the game which sword, which armor, and which potion he wants. And I feel like there's usually a clear answer to that in every matchup, so you have kind of some deck building capabilities to kind of suit the matchup very well. Um, it's usually just that the rest of his deck, of course, is built around that. Um, that you have that extra option available to you. So his defense usually is a bit baddish because you have a lot of 2 value defenses that don't do a lot. And if you don't defend with those, you're defending with one of your attacks with like something like Rend or Damn You're Ugly. Um, so I feel like there's some potential that you miss each time if you want to defend well. Then you're very reliant on Dandelion getting at least 2 plot twists off, because otherwise you'll probably just not have enough gas and probably get fatigued. And I mean, Dandelion is a it's a 5 health character, 5 health sidekick with only 6 defenses, 3 of which are 2s and 3 of which are 3s. So he dies in 2 attacks usually, if not 1 if they use a big one, which isn't actually that bad for them. So yeah, I feel like once Dan is dead, you just maneuver boost every turn and waste a lot of value. Sure, you technically have 8 passes if you use Witcher senses to get every single gear from your deck, which usually, of course, doesn't work because you'll draw into some of them before you draw into all Witcher senses. But yeah, so realistically saying, you have like 3 or 4 passes, which is still not bad, but that's just way better characters than Fatigue in that case. And you just lose a lot of value. So you'll maneuver boost every turn, and yeah, I mean he's still not bad. Don't get me wrong, I'm roasting him a bit now, but it just feels that he lacks that kind of small little extra tweak that actually makes him favored in a lot of matchups. Like I can see him going up into Duza with the ignore sword, um, and just making her not want to play her hisses. Plus you have the discard ignore scheme, which can help a lot, I guess. Um, oh, he goes up into like I don't know, Tesla and action gains him to death or whatever. It's just like, mm, I feel like his overall deck kind of lacks that small little inch of value to actually be a bit more flexible in his playstyle, because usually once you've chosen your gear, you just maneuver, attack, maneuver, boost, attack, and something like that, and there's just not much nuance to it. Um, so yeah, I mean he plays kind of like a very linear game plan, which isn't that bad. He's just that big smack guy. But yeah, if you get smacked in return, or the opponent runs away, and one of them will probably be your opponent's strategy, then you definitely waste a lot of value, and you don't like that. But yeah, he's still definitely playable. Although I might also say he's the Witcher character that I've played the least of. so I can't really tell you a lot about his overall matchups. Um, I'm just repeating what I heard other people say about him. Like some people on my team played him a lot. Um, I'm just repeating a bit what they've said because I trust them. But yeah, so take this with a bit of grain of salt. I'll try him a bit more probably. Um, but since I've already found two new very cool characters in Witcher, maybe even three that I want to try out even more and actually get very good with, he's a bit back on my priority list. And then we get to Luke Cage. This is probably also a controversial one because I've seen many people put Luke even in S tier or something like that. I just don't agree with that. First reason, of course, is as always with like same with Winter Soldier and Panther is just inconsistency as hell. I mean, Luke basically only has three versatile cards for himself, and everything else is red or blue. So often in a game, even if it's going well at some point, you'll just either have a full hand of reds or full hand of blues. And of course, it will be the one that you don't want at that point. So yeah, when you actually want to attack, you'll only have blues because your opponent didn't really attack you a lot, and yeah, you cry. If you actually want to defend because you're getting pressured, well, you only have reds. Cool. Uh, yeah, that's just the problem I often see with Luke players, which is also why I'm not scared to go into Luke in unfavorable matchups, because I'm just like, yeah, well, he'll have a bad draw at some point, usually. So, yeah, who cares? And then I just smack him big, or he can't do anything to me. So, I just don't really see the reason to pick Luke anymore, just like with other characters. Um, he's still definitely playable, and has that strong component of him. Still standing, still a menace of a card. So, he isn't really bad. It's just that I personally would probably never pick him in tournament. Never. I just feel like there will be always will be a better and more consistent option for me available than playing Luke. But yeah, still, if you feel like that kind of gambling guy and feel like, yeah, I've got some good draw today, you can go Luke, and it's fine. The Witcher matchups are kinda on the more even side, if not slightly bad for him, as far as I've seen. So it's not like he's taking a huge dip, but yeah. It's just that I was never really the big Luke fan as other people. I guess it's also just my experience of the character screwing me over more than a couple of times. So yeah. Next up, we have one of my personal favorites, Drac, Mr. Dracula. I mean, Drac is just solid. He has his clear weaknesses, being his lack of defense and against ranged characters in total, but he also has basically the scariest attack in the whole game, being Beast Form. So Drac is kind of like, no matter how unfavored the matchup is, if you get one good Beast Form, turns the game. I recently played a game as Drac versus She-Hulk in a test draft, which I very much didn't enjoy. Because, as you might know, Drac against She-Hulk is an insanely one-sided matchup, and basically a free win for She-Hulk. And it was going really bad, but then I drew a Beast Form and fainted a late justice before, and then bam, 7 damage with Beast Form. And I was like, I top decked the second Beast Form in the next maneuver, and I was like, damn, this is winnable. And yes, I won it. So Drac, even though he definitely has his big counters, he'll probably always be playable, I feel like. Um, just due to Beast Form doing some weird shit. Um, on the other hand, the Witcher matchups, it's kind of 50-50, I would say. Leshen, Geralt, and Yennefer definitely are playable, I would say. Siri is your nightmare. Like, Siri is, nah, you don't do that. And Arin and Philippa kind of seem slightly bad for him, I would say. But it's not like they're unplayable. like Drac against Philippa is actually funny because we have Do My Bidding versus Do My Bidding. But yeah, I just feel like Drac is solid overall. He has his good matchups, he has bad matchups. There's not much to say about it. So yeah. Then we'll get into Mr. Robert Muldoon. I feel like Muldoon has taken a small dip due to Witcher. Uh, Siri is quite good into him. Yennefer and Triss are pretty good into him. And he doesn't like Philippa that much as well. Leshen and Arin are interesting, especially the Arin matchup, because you just don't place traps when he has his ongoing scheme. But I feel like the meta overall doesn't suit him that much anymore, because the usual Unga Bunga characters like Bigfoot, Achilles, Moon Knight, they're still pretty relevant, but just not that relevant anymore because we have so many more options now with The Witcher. That it's more easily to avoid a good Muldoon counter pick, which is usually his niche, because you can't really just go out and pick Muldoon because he has so many big counters in the meta. Um, so I'd say he's dipped a bit, but not much. He's still definitely playable, and if you get someone like, I don't know, Kiet on Muldoon, yeah, go have fun. He surely will. Um, but yeah, that's my thoughts to him. And then we get to Sinbad. Sinbad was kind of like the hidden gem in some of Legends, I would say. Um, that has changed a bit, I would say, with the Witcher release. It's not much. Um, you don't really like the Siri matchup. You also don't really like Aridin. You do like Yen and Triss. That's definitely playable. Leshen is weird. Just depends on when he gets his wolves. Um, but still playable. I mean, it also kind of depends on what he top deck discards. And Philippa is fun, I would say. And even, but yeah, you're one of your nightmares as well as Geralt. Like, that's not great. But yeah, I would say Sinbad still kind of fits quite well. He's still a big counter to a lot of top meta characters. Now with Yenenga, Yennefer, Tesla, She-Hulk, Red. That's like, ooh, damn. He does really, really well into those. So he will probably still be viable. And a bit more on the counterpick side. He's kind of like the opposite to Muldoon, whereas Muldoon wants these Unga Bunga characters, and then you counterpick him very well. Uh, Sinbad wants this kind of slower value characters, um, and then he thrives. But same as Muldoon, it's just like, yeah, well, it's a bit more easier to avoid the Sinbad counterpick now, I would say. It's not as much with Muldoon because Sinbad still has some decent matchups into some Witcher characters. Um, it's just easier to avoid those counterpicks now, I would say. The more characters we get, the more of an evenly balanced lineup you can get, and the less chance there is for you to actually get counterpicked, I would say. So yeah, those like niche characters will fall off a bit overall, but not that much. I'd say right now we're still a bit further away from them, from like the meta only being limited to S plus to A. But yeah. And then we'll get to the last character in B plus, which will be Titania, a character that won Summer of Legends in the worst possible way. Shout out to Kiet. I still hate you for that. Um, yeah, I mean Titania is just kind of solid. She can do kind of a lot of playstyles. She can go pretty aggro. She has a lot of draw. She has Glamour of Rhyme. Um, and a good amount of damage with basically 6/5s, 8 auto damage, and then whatever you get from Queen of the Fairies. Um, she can also, of course, do the Forbidden Sleep thing, which of course you have to set up a lot, but if it works really well. Um, her big, well, kind of lost point, of course, is discards. She doesn't really like discards, because you'll lose a lot of value and then you can't really do sleep anymore. Plus, you'll burn through your deck usually because of your many schemes. And you don't have that many combat cards, so losing some of them is hurts you very lot. Hurts you a lot. And guess which characters have a lot of discard? Well, Witcher. Yeah, Yennetriss is still a funny matchup, I would say. Definitely not unplayable, but it's a lot of discard. So yeah, EP. Siri, in my opinion, is definitely unplayable. That one is yeah. You don't like it. Arin, kind of equally so, because your auto damage just doesn't work on him, and he rushes you down with his big scary attacks, and yeah. So you also can't do the sleepwalk stuff. Mm, Leshen is a weird one. Leshen is definitely playable. I feel like it's on the even side, whereas it's a fun game between pressure and counter pressure because you still, of course, only have 12 health. So if he gets +3 attacks, oh boy, that hurts. Um, so yeah, I feel like she's in a perfectly balanced middle spot right now, where she's definitely still playable. Um, and definitely relevant. It's just not that she excels in a lot of stuff. It's not like she hard counters a lot as well. She just has a okay matchup spread overall. So someone like Kiet, who feels really comfortable with her, will probably put her a bit higher and pick her a bit more. Um, just like I have maybe your Dread or something like that. Um, so yeah, you can't really go wrong a lot with Titania. Um, it of course also depends on how you manage your glamours, but I mean that's something that you can get used to pretty well. So I won't take that as big criticism on her part. Now the fun begins. You see, we still have 4 of the Witcher characters left, and yes, Leshen is 80 or higher. This might sound weird, but hear me out. Next up, we have Leshen. Leshen is like the surprise story of Witcher. I was so hyped for him. He was by far the character that I was most hyped for. I mean, +3 and move 1. How can that not be cool? Then everyone said he's really bad, and I started to believe that myself from playing him. I think on my first initial list of Witcher in the TLS tier, I put him somewhere in C or C plus. But the more I play him, the more unexpected matchups I find that he's actually good into. Like he's already really good into like Bigfoot, Moon Knight, Yennefer is playable, Siri is good for him, um, Houdini is playable, Jill is pretty even. I just played that on ladder. Aradin is doable definitely, and even. But then we have some weird ones, like Tesla. That's a matchup that I would have never imagined Lesnar had any chance. But just from experience, he's favored. And I don't really understand why. Maybe it's just that people don't really have figured out yet how to play against Leshen. But I'm finding a lot more success with him in matchups that on paper don't seem good. I don't know. Um, this might be a bit overestimating Leshen on my part here. And maybe this will turn down a bit more once people start to really figure out how to play against him. But I feel like he isn't really that linear of a player as people thought he would be. People thought he would just hide behind his wolves kinda and play a semi-Muldoon game. But in a lot of cases, I've also seen myself going pretty aggro with Leshen. Like just sending my wolves out and also covering myself in the middle, saying, yeah, come at me if you want to get slapped by a 7. Have fun. and just keeping their hand low with a lot of pressure. I mean, you have action gains and a decent amount of draw. Um, and that usually was my best way to play him, because then you, of course, also don't need so many defenses if your opponent just doesn't come and attack you because he's scared. But yeah, this might be a weird one on my side that I have him this high, but I feel like Leshen is solid. Like, there are only a few matchups that I really, really don't like for him. Like, Dusa, Jibet, Yen. Okay, cool. That's some of the strongest characters in the game. But, I mean, those will be probably banned in many drafts. And then from there on, it's only like really Shulk and Wukong. The rest, definitely playable, I would say, on the top tier side. Um, yeah, maybe I'm overestimating Leshen a bit, just due to my recent games, but he seems really good. I don't know. Next up, I have Joe. Joe is just kind of this jack of all trades character right now in the meta. She kind of does everything and doesn't excel at anything. She doesn't have that many big counters right now. I mean, Daredevil exists, sure. Achilles is a bit annoying for her, but what else? Like, she kind of just has a chance into anyone. She kind of feels like the melee version of Yenenga. Um, so yeah, she's just decent. It just all depends on your experience with her in any matchup, and just good calls, good interactions, and then I feel like she can do well into almost anyone. There isn't really like big things you have to be scary of. So yeah, not much to say about her. She's still very solid and always a good pick, kinda. And then this one has been a decent rise up, I would say. Tomoe. I feel like Tomoe has taken a pretty good step forward with Witcher characters. She does really good into Siri. She does really good into Yennefer. Arin is kind of even. She does really good into Leshen. Although that one is if Leshen does some weird stuff, it is definitely still playable for him. She also does pretty well into Geralt. That one is a bit more funky, but that's definitely playable. And then Philippa is also playable, if not favorite for her, which is funny. Tomoe just feels like one of the best characters into Witcher overall. Like, she doesn't really fear any of them, I would say. And is favored in like into like 3 of them. So I would say she's taken a big jump up. Like, the matchups that she doesn't like in a meta, like Yen is a bit problematic, Bigfoot is a bit problematic, and Wukong. But everything else seems doable. Like, I feel like there's not much you're afraid of. Even someone like Dusa or Strange, like, you can definitely play that. So, yeah, Tomoe seems solid. I definitely look forward to playing her a bit more um, into the new meta, and maybe we'll actually see her being played a lot in the next tournament. I definitely like it, because Tomoe is cool. And then we have another decent rise, I would say, in terms of how strong the character is. Just Daredevil. I mean, Daredevil also seems like he took a good jump to Witcher. Um, he's even with Yennefer. Siri is also kind of even. Um, Aridin is weird. I would also say kind of even. Leshen is probably slightly favored for him, but only slightly. Just depends on when you draw your healings and if you do draw your healings. Um, Geralt seems kind of bad, I would say, and Philippa as well. But still, like, Geralt and Philippa are the lower Witcher characters, and I feel like he just has a very good matchup threat into top tiers right now. Like, the only thing he's really scared of in top tier is Bigfoot. Like, everything else is playable. Like if we go from S to A later. I feel like only Bigfoot is a big problem. So Daredevil might become one more of these just decent into everything picks where he still shuts down a lot of big characters like Dusa or Wukong, which just get pretty much destroyed by him. Um, yeah, I don't know if I'm looking forward to this because most of the matchups that he's good into now is not due to fun Daredevil, but due to Runaway, I have an infinite deck no matter what you do, Daredevil. Mm, so I don't know how to feel about it. I feel like before that it was a bit more the fun experience because he had a few matchups where he could just do the infinite stuff, but most of them were yeah, a fun back and forth. So yeah, we'll see. But I think we can expect Daredevil to be banned a bit more often than before. And now we get to Houdini. Uh, Houdini, I don't know. I'm also not the biggest Houdini fan, just personally, but you can't deny his potential. Like, just in regards to Witcher, he has some kind of 50-50-ish spread, I would say. He does really well into Yennetriss, which is a big win for him. Um, Series even. Depends on Unicorn Ally and, well, draw order, as always. Arin, I feel like, doesn't like Houdini, just from one game played. So might be just how the game went, but I didn't feel comfortable as Arin to Houdini, which is again a big W for him. Legend is even, I would say, and the other two are slightly bad for you. But it's still that explosiveness of Houdini that can turn any game that will always probably keep him here in A tier. It's just that, just like before, I feel like we have a lot of answers now where a big Houdini pick might not screw you over as much as before, but he will probably still remain around A tier forever, just due to his explosive nature and what he can do with center stage into pick reveal. So yeah. And then. Uh Next one, I have Moon Knight. I feel like Moon Knight has taken a small dip down due to Witcher. Uh Might just be my experience because I've seen other people state very different things. But just from how I played it, um, Yen and Triss are kind of even with him, if not slightly favored. People say Moon Knight just punches them down, but I don't really feel like he has enough cards to do that because they just discard him too much. Mm, Siri seems pretty bad for him. Just the constant pressure she puts up once she has enough swords, and she can survive until then pretty easily. Aridin also doesn't seem great. Um, just to his very high defenses once he's in range, and before that he can just waste a lot of your value with the Red Riders. Leshen is bad for you. Leshen just fatigues you every game. Um, Geralt I feel like is even. It's just punching back and forth, and Philippa is probably good for you. Um, but that's like 5 of the Witcher characters that you don't really want to go up against. Mm, so I feel like he's taking a small dip. It's not like all of those matchups are unplayable. I would say Leshen is almost unplayable. Um, and Siri is kinda bad, but the rest are not insanely bad for you. It's just that he doesn't really. I wouldn't really feel comfortable playing Moon Knight into those characters yet. Maybe that's just a thing of time. But yeah, I'll keep him here at high A, like the top of A tier, which is still pretty good. Like you'll still see people picking Moon Knight left and right because once some S tiers and counters of him are banned, he'll probably still be one of the best picks. But yeah, I just feel like he's not that uh, perfect pick into anything like he was in Summer of Legends. And then to go into A plus, we start with my love, my dear little rat. I'm so happy that Red hasn't taken any damage into Witcher because she basically plays into all of them well. Aridin is probably the most problematic one, but even that's playable on a move 5 map. Definitely, I like it. And Geralt is a bit weird, just depends on your draw order. But the others are definitely good for her. I like it. Um, they're also pretty fun matchups, so it's not like she's uh, damaged anything. Yeah, Red is just so solid. She can play into basically everything you throw at her, with just the right experience. Like even matchups like Houdini, I would say right now, just from how much I played them, I feel comfortable with that. Seems even if you know what to do. So yeah, Red will probably always be my stable in A or A plus that I can always rely on, and you probably too. Um, so yeah, go and play Red. She's cool. She's the best character in the game. Prove me wrong. Um, and then we get into another very, very cool character, and people will scream at that. Wukong. Wukong is cool. Uh, yeah, I don't care if I offended you now. Yeah, Wukong stays solid, I would say. Wukong's still very, very good value game. I feel like now with Witcher characters, I feel like he's become even more fun because into characters like Yentris or Siri or Aridin, you can't really play your hide behind clone wall the whole time game. Um, so you actually have to play a bit more aggressive, which is the way I liked to play Wukong the whole time, which is also why I like him. And now there's just more reason to play him that way, so we have even more fun monkey matchups. Woohoo! Um, yeah, Wukong's solid. He still has some small contrasts like Duza, Yen, and that's kind of it. She-Hulk maybe. Um, but yeah, I feel like Wukong solid as ever, and probably even more fun than before. Might be wrong. And then we get into another Witcher character, and that surprised me a bit that he's not number two. I was told before that Arin will probably be the strongest or second strongest Witcher character, but no, I'd say he's no number three. Arin. So basically, at the start, I thought like he will be better Achilles, but it turns out his matchup strat is actually pretty different because he's way more punishable than Achilles. Because once he's enraged, it's not like he's this 18 health beefy boy that draws after every combat. Now he's still 14 health. Sure, he has better defenses, but not many of them. Um, so you can actually punish him back. And if he enrages on the wrong time, well, he'll waste a lot of good attacks on defense. So I feel like it's just a more fun version of Achilles because I absolutely despise Achilles. Um, Origin just seems like a more fair and more fun version of him, I would say. Um, due to not just having that pet thing in your face, and once that one dude is dead, he's enraged. Now you can afford to kill one or two Red Riders off yourself if you need to, if they're blocking your way. So you don't feel as bad the whole time. Plus, you can farm effects on him quite well because he doesn't have feints early. Um, so I feel like Aridin's just kind of fair overall. Once he's enraged, yep, he's very scary. He can smack you with 3/8s and 3/5 value random discards and 4 value counter punches and whatever. But at the same time, he also has 14 health and no healing. So if you just smack him back, he also doesn't really have much draw except on a 1 value defense or scheme. Um, yeah, he can also crumble. So he just feels pretty fair overall. I'd say his matchup spread is decent. He doesn't really have that many big counters, I'd say. Um, Worst things for him are probably stuff like T-Rex. I've seen is pretty bad for him. Um, I also don't really like the Achilles matchup for him. Just my opinion. But yeah, he seems solid. Definitely. I expected him to be higher, or nah, that's wrong. I expected him to be exactly here, but I expected other characters to be lower than him, if that makes sense. Anyways, next to Aridin, I'll just put basically Achilles. Yeah, Achilles just stays as decent as before. He has the added benefit of not being bad into Leshen, which a lot of the other Unga Bunga characters have, because he has battle hardened. Um, so that's good. Everything else just stays kind of even into Witcher, I would say. So he's not really affected that much by the characters. He just stays solid, which is sad. I wish he would have dropped out of the matter, but yeah, that's my personal bias. Next up, my dear Shulk. I'm happy. Shulk has some really cool matchups into Witcher. I'd say Triss is even, Siri feels even, Eridan feels slightly bad, depending on if he gets the no auto damage scheme when he's enraged. Um, Leshen is the biggest free win I've ever seen. Um, and Geralt and Philippa are probably good for you. Um, yeah, Shaw just stays solid. I mean, she has probably one more counter with Aridin, but at the same time, she doesn't really dislike the other ones. So I feel like she'll stay here at the top of A plus. So kind of like exactly the character that you don't really need to bend, but that you'll have to watch out for in draft each time. So yeah, I love where she's at. Please stay there, Shulk. Really cool. And then we get to Tesla, top of A plus. Tesla is weird. I feel like he's taking a small dip. He's pretty good into Yentris. He doesn't like Siri that much, and surprisingly, Leshen is pretty bad for him. I still don't know how that matchup is bad for him. It's just bad for him, and I don't know why. Uh, and Aridin feels fun, even same with Geralt and Philippa. So he still has his like weaknesses. It's just all about playing around the coils, and even in those matchups that are slightly bad for you, you can still do stuff by playing differently. And I feel like people will also figure out how to play against Yennefer a bit better, um, how to play against Leshen a bit better, because I just I can't. It can't be that that is Leshen favorite. Never. How? Um, but yeah. Um, he'll stay here at top of A plus. But yeah, as you see, we have two Witcher characters in S tier. My opinion might be biased. Who knows? First up, we have Siri. Oh boy, am I impressed. I love this horse. um, yeah, Siri is just, I don't know. She's definitely becoming one of my new mains. Like, surely. Um, I feel like she has kind of everything. It just depends on your experience on a matchup, which source cards you want to prioritize, and then how good you're at adapting to a given hand situation. Because I feel like there are only like 3 matchups that she really, really dislikes, apart from like top tiers, and even at top tiers, like she's even with Electra holy. Um, I feel like she dislikes T-Rex. She doesn't like T-Rex at all. She just gets run down before she even gets any of her source effects. Um, I feel like she doesn't really like Tomoe that much, because Tomoe can put a lot of pressure on her and discard her cards when she actually wants to play source. Um, and then the other matchup that is like a kind of weird one, I would say overall, um, is G-Bet. G-Bet just I don't know. He just has a very different game flow. to it when you play Siri against him. It just doesn't really feel right, and I didn't really feel comfortable with it. So yeah, I don't know. Um, but everything else is kind of even with her. It's so funny. Like, there's not a single other matchup that I can think of where I wouldn't like to play Siri, except like Strange and Sherlock. Like everything else just seems, yeah, play Siri. It's so funny. She's becoming my new Yenenga. We're like the best comfort pick into no matter what. It's not even like red where I have just like, oh yeah, I've played that so much and I still know my 4, 5, 6 counters. Now it's just like, yeah, ban 3 characters and you play Siri into everything. I don't know. Might be me. Who cares? My list. Next up, Yen and Triss. Damn. I mean, I was already warned that Yennefer would probably be very strong, but holy, yep. I feel like a lot of people play them a bit too much for value, where they try to hang back a bit and just discard a lot of cards. Nah, for me, Yennetriss are a very aggro fighter. Like, you can afford to boost in and attack them because, well, you'll probably get a 2-for-1 trade anyway, so they'll lose a card. So who cares? And then you'll just smack them for 6s every turn. Kinda. I mean, Yennefer 7s are just insane value wise. Um, Losing one of your own cards by choice, so usually a bad card for boosting, to get rid of 2 cards on your opponent's hand. Damn. Damn. Triss's 4 is also just insane. Like, that card is so good. Um, their lack, I would say, is the defensive situation. So, Unga Bunga characters that just don't really care to take damage, either because they have so good defenses or a lot of health or a lot of draw to just run you down. Yennefer doesn't like those, but that's where Triss comes in. Characters like Bigfoot, Achilles, Luke, those are where Yennefer struggles, and Triss is just perfectly made for those characters, I would say. It's not like she's favored into those. I would say she's even into all 3 of them. But it's just those big chunk melee characters that run up to your face and hit you. You play a scheme, they take 2. Their good defenses don't matter, and you run away. It's just perfect. I feel like Triss just works in Yennefer's game plan very well. I don't see them being not S tier, and people have made fun of me because of that in the Discord, but I'll prove them wrong. Um, yeah, they're just really good. They're not overpowered in any case or something like that, and their matchups still feel close a lot of times. But kind of similar to Siri, I just don't really feel afraid once I ban something like Houdini, T-Rex. That's kind of it. From there on, I'm good to play Yennefer. I don't know. Might be my bias again, and maybe people will start to play differently against them over time. But right now, I'd say they're definitely S tier. And then, I mean, the rest hasn't really changed a lot. You see, it's the same characters as before, just because they're so fundamentally strong. Next up, we have Bigfoot. Bigfoot will stay as the weakest one of these, just due to his very bad matchup into Leshen. That matchup is just horrible, holy. But yeah, everything else, 5 cancels, 3.6s, 6 auto damage with Jack schemes, insane defenses. You can't go wrong with Bigfoot, except into like these a lot of 1 health sidekick characters. Like we have more of those now, Injin, Wukong, and now we have also Leshen, so yeah, there's more counters to Bigfoot, but I mean, you have to find that niche to actually play Leshen and stuff. So yeah, I don't think Bigfoot cares at all. Then next we'll go with Yen. Yen just stay solid. I mean, I would say Siri and Yennefer give her some troubles. Um, Especially Yennefer. Like Siri seems kind of even with her. Um, Yennefer seems slightly favored into Yen, but only slightly as well. I still feel like Yenenga will always kind of be solid. Um, as long as they don't release a second Sinbad. But yeah, Yen is just like the comfort pick as always. So yeah, nothing to complain. Then we'll go with Dusa. I'd say Dusa is kind of similar to Yen in the matchups, whereas she doesn't really like Yennefer. But in comparison to Yenenga, she also doesn't really like Ciri. I would say Ciri is also favored into Dusa. Um, but on the other hand, I feel like Dusa has a better matchup spread overall into the rest of the cast, which is why I still have her above Yen. I feel like these two are interchangeable. Like you can put them wherever you want. I'd be fine for that. Just the top four, I think, are not debatable. Next up, we have Golden Bat. Ugh, I hate this Golden Skull. I hate him so much. Yeah. I mean, he doesn't give a crap about any Witcher character, I feel like. I mean, Ciri's good for him. Yennefer, you just have a better value game than her. Muhahaha, run away. Arin, yeah. Come and smack me with an 8, then I smack you with two sevens. Have fun. Leshen just, yeah, doesn't do anything. Geralt is, nah. I mean, Geralt just gets fatigued. Woohoo. And Philippa doesn't have damage. Woohoo. G-Bet just stays broken as always. Yeah, sure, he has counters, but my big problem with G-Bet is that basically all of his counters are in B or lower, or like B plus or lower. So they're pretty risky to pick in any draft, and they'll get very easily countered. So you can't really afford to pick more than one of them. Then they'll get target banned, and then G-Bet just wins against everything. And please just delete this Golden Skull. Like I'd rather play 100 games against Strange Sherlock or Electra than one game against G-Bet. It's so annoying. Anyways, I mean, big three haven't changed. Who would have thought? Number three, Strange. Only reason he's not as fundamentally broken as the other two. He still can get slapped a lot. I feel like with a bit of luck, someone like Ciri or Aradin can win him. Yennefer, if she boosts a lot and doesn't play for value, might have a chance. Maybe. I don't know. But he still has his few counters, like Moon Knight, Tomoe Tesla, T-Rex. Yeah, it's kind of too strange. What should I say? Dude is just broken. Then we'll get to Electra. I mean, Electra, she has an even matchup with Ciri. Everything else, she just wins. Woohoo. Into Witcher. So yeah, nothing has changed about her. And then Sherlock is just Sherlock. What should I say? He is the best character in the game, and I don't think that will ever change. Or I hope that will not change, because if that ever changes and a character comes in that's even better than Sherlock, oh boy. But yeah, that would be it for my updated tier list for March now in 2025 with the Witcher characters. Um, Feel free to write your opinions on this list in the comments. If you have any detailed questions about any placing, because of course I can't talk forever about every single character. I mean, we have how many? 58 characters now. Oh boy. I always see myself in a year making a tier list here, and we'll have I don't know, 72 characters or something like that. Woohoo! Yeah, these videos will get longer and longer. So yeah, I hope you'll tune in on Sunday for the series strategy Sunday. And with all that said, thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye bye.